Hey everyone, and thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Today I'm going to be discussing what I consider to be one of the most underrated commercial firearms of the past 5 years, certainly commercial battle rifles. And that's going to be the Century Arms C308 Sporter, specifically the so-called Gen 2 version. Today is going to be mostly rambling storytelling. However, if you're interested in seeing this rifle in a direct head-to-head comparison with the PTR 91 GIR, I should have a video on that, which you can probably find linked in the description. Alright, so we can't start talking about the Gen 2 C308 in earnest without first acknowledging the elephant in the room, and that elephant's name is Century International Arms. For those who aren't aware, Century is a pretty polarizing company, and the very mention of their name is a conversation ender in some firearm circles. In fact, it's probably worth noting that if this video gets more than a handful of views, I can all but guarantee there's already somebody who has hit dislike and moved on to another video simply by the implication that I might have something positive to say about Century. And to be perfectly honest, I don't fully blame those people. Here's the thing. Century has produced, imported, and subcontracted an enormous array of firearms over the past 60 years, and they've cultivated a tremendously diverse catalog, a vast spread rivaled only by their inconsistent quality control. Century products are by definition hit and miss, and when they operate at that scale, they've had a lot of misses. There is an extremely well-represented subsection of the American gun buying public who at one point or another has given Century Arms money and in return gotten a lemon. And for some people, that's as far as the conversation needs to go. Personally, however, my opinion is a little bit different. For one, I'm old enough to have caught the very tail end of the golden age of surplus. And as a curio and relic guy, first and foremost, and I do consider myself a CNR collector above all else, that has forever endeared me to Century to some degree. Some of my most prized worldly possessions have the Century import mark on them, and were purchased at prices that would make collectors even 5-10 years younger than me pretty jealous. Nor is it lost on me that even in the modern day, Century is one of the only companies which makes their business on keeping certain historically relevant firearm lines available. If you're in the United States right now and you want an MP5, well, the AP9 is a pretty good, formerly the Zenith, is a pretty good option. If you want a Dragunov, well, you're probably out of luck unless you got a whole lot of money. But if you want a PSL 54, they're one of the only companies that can make that possible for a number which is not entirely ridiculous. And I understand that there are some people who think that $2,000 for a PSL 54 is entirely ridiculous, and I respect that. But I think it's less ridiculous than $6K for a SVD. So in any case, don't get me wrong. Century is not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're capitalists like the rest of us, and their eyes are on profit rather than the preservation of history. This isn't the civilian marksmanship program we're talking about. However, my eyes are on using my income in order to preserve and enjoy and ultimately celebrate and interact with the history of small arms. And Century is a very useful entity in that pursuit. As advertised, I've digressed pretty much immediately. My only point here is that Century Arms is a big company with a long and checkered history. It is said that trust is earned in droplets and lost in gallons, so I do understand the emotion lying behind the distaste that many in the American gun buying public hold towards Century Arms. I don't take their business personally, however, and I feel very comfortable evaluating their products individually such that I can use research and the experiences of others to map my way through the minefield of their catalog, searching out hidden gems. Alright, let's get into the meat and potatoes and actually talk about this rifle here. I previously referred to my C308 Sporter as a so-called Gen 2, and there's a long and convoluted story behind that, a story which I have neither the time nor the inside details to convey accurately. So to summarize as best as I am able, Century developed the C308 Sporter line in order to capitalize on their significant inventory of surplus Spanish CETME parts kits. Rather than build true CETME clones, which would of course incorporate a reversed safety direction compared to the G3 pattern, Century built these rifles with modified G3 style trigger packs, offering manual of arms compatibility with their earlier C91 line. which also used G3 style housings. The result was not a historically accurate clone of any sort, but in theory, a highly affordable and functional battle rifle which mirrored the performance, aesthetics, and shooting experience of its iconic ancestors. The only catch to this theory was that the first wave of C308 Sporters was apparently built in-house and was plagued with precisely the sorts of quality control issues for which Century Arms is so commonly associated. Reviews industry-wide were mixed at best and abysmal at worst. While some customers swear by their early examples, countless others reported frequent malfunctions and even pretty legitimate safety hazards. Of particular note was the apparent difficulty Century encountered welding the trunnions into the receiver, with many photographs circulating online to this day depicting cracks, gaps, and other defects in these crucial bonding areas. As the story goes, one way or another, Century Arms got the message. Rather than continue to devolve their otherwise high-quality CETME parts kits into subpar builds, they instead subcontracted the remainder of their assembly to the unrivaled experts in domestic mass production of roller-delayed blowback firearms, PTR. While I've been unable to confirm the precise nature of PTR's involvement, whether they provided parts, technical data, hands-on labor, or a combination of the three, there was an undeniably stark shift in production quality, and the informally designated C308 Gen 2 was born. While it should be noted that the welding is slightly different between the Gen 2 C308s and the PTRs, there's remarkable similarities in terms of the patterning of the welds and other features, and at the very least, the welding in crucial areas was now done properly and to spec. Of additional note, the most conspicuous change between the first and second generation of C308 was the addition of a welded optics rail, a highly functional staple in PTR's catalog. In a PR move I can't claim to understand, Century chose to introduce these changes rather quietly and sold the new and I argue vastly improved C308 under the same model name at the same price point. Understandably, many in the industry had already soured to the model, and unsold rifles sat on shelves for more than a year, sometimes being liquidated for as low as $450. My personal example was purchased for $525 out the door, and with the addition of wooden CETME furniture, a surplus CETME sling, a reproduction Rhodesian chest rig, and more HK aluminum G3 magazines than I could go through in a couple lifetimes, I still came out only a couple dollars north of $600. If there was another opportunity in the last 5 or 10 years to get a proven battle rifle with a full loadout for $600, I must have missed it. Obviously, this only matters if the rifle performs, and consistent with the reports of others, my rifle has performed flawlessly. It has experienced zero malfunctions, exhibits accuracy well within mil-spec expectations, and was zeroed with M80 ball out of the box. The trigger is above average for the platform. The Century Arms muzzle brake is surprisingly effective, so much so that I've actually purchased another couple to use on other .30 caliber rifles that I own, and the optics rail is properly set and zeroed. It's still a G3 CETME pattern rifle, and there are no shortage of legitimate criticisms about that platform, but for someone who wants that platform, it performs as it should. Perhaps most tellingly, it comfortably keeps up with, if not slightly edges out, the PTR GIR in terms of function. Again, I should have a direct head-to-head comparison video where you can see that and see both of those rifles a little more closely. In terms of value, obviously, it blows it out of the water. So for all those reasons, I do believe that this is one of the best battle rifle buys of the past 5 or 10 years. However you feel about Century, however you feel about G3s, doesn't really matter. Point being, if you got one of these for $450, $525, even if you paid $650 for one of these, I don't think you're regretting that today. So I hope that video was interesting to some of you out there. If you did, if you want to see this rifle more closely, go ahead and check out what videos I got in my links. You want to hear my thoughts on other weapons, stuff like that, go ahead and check out the channel. Obviously it's YouTube, so if you dislike me and you want me to know, go ahead and hit that dislike button, leave a nasty comment, get personal, and otherwise catch you in the next one.